Notes on Senegal's public-private partnership strategy for its rural electrification program. User affordability, inaccessibility, low population densities and dispersed households, low project profitability, and overdependence on subsidies that grow fiscal deficit make rural electrification a complicated issue. With 196,000 square kilometers, a third of France or half of Japan, 57% of the 14 million population of Senegal live in rural areas, whilst the GDP per capita is $1,046 as of 2013, over 60% of rural population lives under the poverty line. 56% of the total population has access to electricity, but significantly only 26% of the rural population has access to electricity. As the government understands the role of PPP in the infrastructure challenge and the role of the private sector in infrastructure development, it has put to work know-how and experience of PPPs to mobilize investment from private investors and international organizations. The Agence Sénégalaise d'Electrification Rurale, ASER, was created and put in charge of all matters related to rural electrification. ASER developed a two-pronged concession model. The Rural Electrification Priority Program, PPER, for concessions of sizable areas, offered to national or international utilities. Electrification Rurale d'Initiative Locale, ERIL, for small-scale concessions that subsidizes initial investments of local electrification initiatives. Both PPER and ERIL instruments receive state subventions and significant funds from international organizations and donors. Regarding PPER, only 6 concessions were signed by 2012, and there are still 2 large concessions to be assigned. The government has been unable to prove their attractiveness for concessionaires. In comparison, Morocco achieved a 95% rural electrification rate in a similar time frame. Additionally, even though some concessionaires have started their activities, they will only reach a small part of the rural population, leaving over half the rural areas without electricity for the foreseeable future. Indeed, the overall electrification program has only achieved 0.08% of rural households, leaving the vast majority depending on emergency programs and NGOs. ERIL, in turn, can only be considered for villages which will not be part of the first 3-year plan for PPER. Furthermore, PPER operators do not favor the build-up of other independent operators in the areas granted to them. As a result, a final definition of the ERIL framework is still pending. Hence, the rural electrification issue is not solved. As we saw in the World Bank PPP course, the 3 basic requirements that make PPP work are economics, politics, and execution. Economics requires sound fundamentals and putting in place a structure for the PPP that optimizes cost, quality, and service. Although in theory, the 2 concession models of ASER, large-scale concessions PPER, and concessions based on local initiative ERIL, in conjunction with the tariff set by the regulatory authority, ensure profitability, including continued maintenance and hence sustainability, profitability still has to be proven. Whilst the structure put in place for the PPER ensures the above, Senegal could not provide sufficient information to potential candidates to assess the project. An excellent initiative to solve this issue has been the Data for Development Award, based on making available anonymized mobile data to researchers on development practices. The first award was granted to a project that crossed data analysis of mobile use with the electricity consumption in electrified areas. It proved a direct correlation between electricity expense and mobile use. Based on it, the model provides size of the electricity potential market. The researchers have been able to come up with a proper estimation of the potential use of electricity, which results in a clear map of recommended electricity options and their financial viability. This new map will change perception and allow the government to take decisions and put forward the small-scale off-grid local initiatives for rural electrification ERIL. The second component is politics, which includes securing political champions, building stakeholder support, assessing and managing environmental and social impacts, and fostering a stable and supportive regulatory environment. In the case of Senegal, politics has not worked in favor of rural electrification. The projects have had their political champions, including the new president Macky Sall and former president throughout most of ASER's life, Abdoulaye Wade. Also, the new Minister for Energy, Ali Ndiaye, is viewed as supportive of PPPs. In spite of this, building stakeholder support has proven difficult. Indeed, the high public profile of the electricity sector and the ASER together with the rural electrification issue appearing recurrently in political discourse, make it a much politicized subject. As a result, continuity of the program is recurrently broken by political authorities' changes in ASER. Furthermore, the public utility Senelec and the Rural Electrification Agency ASER have had difficulties to align interests and policies. This fracture between the two main Senegal public players probably affected the rural electrification program. The described political issues contrast with the limited political pressure from rural populations, which are not as politically active on energy issues as their urban counterparts. Consequently, politicians have attached more weight in the energy issues of demanding urban populations. Finally, the stakeholder support and the assessment of environmental and social impacts have also proven difficult. PPER concessions and contributions process involved 8 groups of consultees and 7 separate consultation processes, originally expected to account for approximately 130 days of a year-long process. In reality, the attribution process for the first concession took 5 years, with extensive negotiations between stakeholders accountable for long delays. Closely linked to the above, execution requires the right mix of local and global experts, support a transparent and competitive bid process, and plan for ongoing contract monitoring and review. In the case of Senegal, the technical capacity of ASER and the wider Senegalese energy sector has been questioned. ASER may have been overly dependent on CRSE for technical support in its early days, and Senelec is thought to be too reliant on European industry standards, often superfluous to the needs of Senegal's rural installations. Although the principles and procedures followed in the bidding process have been competitive and transparent, foreign investors' lack of interest has de facto narrowed the number of applicants, reducing the effectiveness of the process. Following this analysis on the economics, politics, and execution, we can see that even though the electrification program has proactively tackled many issues, it has encountered difficulties to gain momentum. The lessons learned and the new information available are enabling Senegal's authorities to advance the rural electrification program and to achieve its objectives. From private investors' point of view, the access to real data will enable sound feasibility and viability studies. This in turn will open the door to reactivate private investments in both PPER and ERIL. However, the inherent conflict of ERIL's projects stepping into PPER areas under concessions must be addressed by the government to set a clear framework that enables private investors to raise funds.